it. This is just a very short summary of our teaching methodology and study methodology. So you've got the home study plan, which is the Excel spreadsheet that I shared with everyone. So you've got the list of things to do before the course started. Okay, then the learning phase of the course, you've got what you should be doing before class for each chapter. You've got the chapters down here, 1 till 17. And then the slides, course notes, which you should read before class. And then after class, you've got the study text, chapter roundup, quick quiz, practice questions in the study text, and then practice and revision kit questions. Okay, so there are lots and lots of practice questions to do. It's really important to do them, which is what I'm going to talk about in a minute. But you should be finishing this week, because we have last content class on chapters 15, 16, and 17 on Saturday. Okay, so you should be hopefully finishing this. You are never going to be able to do everything 100% perfectly. Key point is to jump in, do the exercises, and learn from doing the exercises. Anyway, I'm going to go back to talking about study technique in a moment. And then we've got revision. Okay, so practice questions, remaining practice questions in the study text, if you haven't completed already. Practice and revision kit, remaining questions. And then the ACCA specimen exam, which we're going to debrief in the final exam technique class, the final class. So we've got the practice exam on the 9th of November, and then we've got 2 revision classes. In the first revision class, we're going to go through the practice exam, and then in the second one, we're going to do the ACCA specimen exam. So the practice exam is the one you're going to do, we'll do under times conditions. I will send it to you by email, so it will be online. And you'll need to do it on your computers, either in the classroom or remotely. But I'll send it to you by email. And that one I will mark, okay, and then we'll do a debrief. And then you've got the ACCA specimen exam to do in your own time. And then in the final class, we will go through this one. When you do it, this specimen exam, it's on the ACCA website. Just make sure that you save your answers. So you need to note down your answers in a separate spreadsheet, because you will lose the answers in the CBE environment. It doesn't save them for you. So make sure you do your answers separately in an Excel spreadsheet so that you've got them when we debrief them. Okay, so in terms of the other resources, you've got mock exams 1, 2, and 3 in the practice and revision kit, ACCA extra constructed response questions on the ACCA website, and then session CBE mock exams, a whole load of mock exams there, past exams, formula sheet. So you do not have much in this formula sheet, okay? Just the learning curve and the demand curve. So all of the ratios, if you need to learn, for example, okay, there are other bits and pieces, the variances, and there's quite a lot of things that you need to know for the exam, which will not be given in the formula sheet. Right, we go back to the study plan. You've got the 5 minutes with the performance management examining team video, examination guidance, which is really useful for practice exam. You can look at the examiners and see what mistakes other students made, because people often make the same mistakes. So it's really, really useful to look at the mistakes that other students made, which are listed in the examining team's report. And then technical articles. So there are lots of useful technical articles which I made class, which will help you with topics. So just going back to the slide. So there's not much point in going through this, because it's from the teaching phase of the course, about what you should do before class, so reading the slides and course notes, and then in class, obviously participating actively, doing the practice questions, asking questions, doing the exercises. And then after class, reading the course notes again, completing practice questions. And you can still do this if you haven't done it for every chapter. So read through the course notes again, make sure you haven't missed anything. Go through any practice questions that you have not done before, or redo practice questions that you found difficult. Look things up in the study text if there's something that you are unsure about or you want a bit more detail on. Complete the chapter roundup quiz, complete practice questions in the study text, and the practice and revision kit. Then what I want to focus on today, and maybe have a bit of a discussion, okay, is something that we talked about a little bit in the last class. So I've been speaking to the students who have passed exams about, who've been approved in exams, who've passed the exams, about what they did in order to study effectively. And I have kind of collated the results of those discussions into this slide. So I'm going to go through it, and then I'm going to open up for comments from you guys, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you're studying and how you might change that if you think it's necessary. And the first point I want to make, overall, what you should be trying to do is recreate the conditions of the exam. And why? Because that will mean that you will be prepared for the exam on the exam day. So the idea is you keep doing what you will be doing on the exam day before the exam, so that when it comes to the exam day, you're not going to be worried. You know that you're prepared, and it will just be like, oh, another practice session, except it's the real exam. That's the focus. Focus on recreating the conditions of the exam. If you have previously failed exam, you need to change the way you study. Okay, so it could be that you didn't study, in which case you need to study, or it could be that you didn't study effectively. So you didn't recreate the conditions of the exam. If you don't practice under the exam conditions, as in without notices and timing yourself, then you're not going to be prepared for the exam. Okay, so in order to be prepared for the exam, you need to make sure the way you study is focused on the exam. You should also be studying every day. Now, this is ideal. Okay, if you can study every day, even if you're tired, and you keep going back to the older content, it's going to help you to improve your knowledge retention. Now, of course, not everyone is able to do that, but the idea is to study as frequently as you can, even if it's only for a few minutes every day. When I was studying, I used to study mostly at weekends on Saturdays, but I did read a little bit during the week when I was commuting to work, and even just a little bit keeps your mind going. And what it does is it makes connections in your brain. Okay, so and those connections need to be continuously happening. And with continuity, with repetition, and with connecting the content continuously, you will retain it better. Okay, so shorter, more frequent sessions actually have been proven to be more effective. And going back to the older content so you don't forget it. And then there are two main points here. So one is to do lots of exercises, and the other is to focus more on the things you aren't so good at. And there are a few things to say about each of these. So doing the exercises. If you focus on recreating the conditions of the exam, you will be more prepared for the exam. So that's why we do exercises. The exercises mimic or copy or imitate the conditions of the exam, okay? But only if you do the questions without referring to your notes or without referring to the answers. And so you need to be focused on thinking, am I recreating the conditions of the exam here? And one thing that I want you to, please don't ever think, oh, I don't know enough in order to do practice questions in exam conditions. It doesn't matter. You're testing yourself. And just by testing yourself, you are preparing yourself for the exam. Because in the exam, you will not know everything. So do not wait until you feel ready, as you never will feel ready. And you will never be ready until you practice. The practicing is what's going to make you ready. So if you don't practice, you won't be ready. So it's a kind of catch-22. Like if you think, oh, I need to study this before I can do practice questions, or I need to study this before I can do practice questions without my notes, you will never be ready for the exam. Okay? You need to be thinking, right, I'm going to do practice questions, even though I don't know this. I'm just going to try to make it up to figure it out when I'm doing the question. And I'm going to learn by trying really hard to recall the knowledge, even though I don't know it very well. And that is going to help me to prepare for the exam. And I will be prepared for the situation where I don't remember something very well, but I managed to pull it, to retrieve it with a little bit of effort. I managed to do it, and I'm used to doing it because I've practiced doing that. hopefully that makes sense. The thing is that we retain knowledge when we really struggle a little bit to access it. So studying is not easy. When it's harder, we retain the knowledge better. And when we really have to push ourselves to apply it, that's when we really start to learn. Also, you can read something, think you've understood it, and then you do an exercise and you realize you didn't understand it so well. Okay, so do not wait before doing practice questions. You need to be doing them all the time, under exam conditions, without referring to the answers, without referring to notes. Just try to do them with the knowledge that you already have. You also need to make sure you're covering the whole syllabus. So use the home study plan to help you. That lists all the chapters. You need to make sure you're doing practice questions for each chapter. You should be working under timed conditions so that you get used to that. So figure out, in fact, in the practice, the question bank in the study text, it tells you how many minutes to allocate each question. It doesn't like to, but you need to work out how many minutes you've got and use that. Okay. Then, without your notes, okay, and start by planning your answer if it's a constructed response question. Then, once you've run out of time, check the answers, read the answer, and then do the question again without referring to the notes. And that will tell how much you've actually retained of what is the correct answer. So that's all about the exercises. At the same time, you should be focusing on the things you're not so good at. So how do you know what your weaker areas are? You need to be testing yourself to identify them. So don't just think, oh, I think I'm not very good at it. Test yourself. Are you good or are you not good? It could be you're better at some areas than you think. And it could be that you're worse at others and you think you're good. So test yourself to identify your weaker areas. Don't just rely on what you think your weaker areas are. Try to recall what you can remember without notes regularly. So that will get you used to using your memory, really searching for connections in your mind, which will help you pull the information you need. So you can use mind maps if that helps you, for example. So you have mind maps in the course notes. It's just a visual overview of the topic area, and then you can make notes to add additional information that you remember about those areas. Make brief notes only for things that you really struggle to remember. So you should not have comprehensive notes. Okay, you've already got the notes. That's the study text and the course notes. You don't need to make another set of course notes. And just note down the things, write down the things that are hard for you to remember, like the ratios, for example, and then maybe stick them somewhere, like wherever you brush your teeth, in the bathroom where you brush your teeth, brushing your teeth, looking at the list of ratios, or on the fridge or something like that. And look up what you don't remember or don't understand very well. So this goes in combination with doing the exercises, and also just reading through the course notes, for example. When you're reading, just make a note of what you don't really understand very well, or when you're doing a practice question, oh, I don't understand this very well, I need to look it up. Don't let that stop your flow. So if you're reading through a section of the study text, for example, just note down the things you don't understand very well, and then finish reading, and then you can look those things up individually. So look them up. If you are stuck, you can ask a question. So ask a question, WhatsApp group, send an email, and either I or Pam will be very, very happy to answer your questions. So I'm going to open up to you guys. I'm hoping we can have a bit of a discussion here about what you found works, what doesn't work, and if you think that this is going to be useful. And really, the whole thing to focus on is recreating the conditions of the exam so you are prepared.